I never planned to be the first human an alien cried in front of. I wasn't a diplomat or a soldier or a hero from the recruitment vids. I was a systems technician, third shift, orbital relay maintenance, working a lonely contract above Earth's outer defense ring. The job paid well because no one liked the silence. Out there, surrounded by vacuum and blinking status lights, you had nothing but your own thoughts and the hum of machines to keep you company. The night everything changed started like every other. Coffee tasted burnt. My hands were numb from cold metal. The relay station's artificial sunrise flickered on schedule, painting the corridor walls a pale gold. I was halfway through recalibrating a gravimetric sensor when the proximity alarms whispered instead of screamed. That alone made my heart stutter. Nothing was supposed to approach Relay 9 without clearance, especially not quietly. I pulled up the external feed, expecting debris or a drifting probe. Instead, the screen filled with a shape that made my breath catch. A ship, sleek, organic in design, nothing like human engineering. Its surface flowed like liquid obsidian, bending light in ways my eyes struggled to track. No transponder. No weapons lock. Just there, hovering. Before I could send a distress signal, the lights in the station dimmed. Not a power failure, something else. Something intentional. Then the airlock cycled. I froze, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might crack my ribs. I grabbed the nearest tool. Ridiculous, a torque wrench against unknown technology, but it was better than empty hands. The inner door slid open. She stepped inside. She looked almost human at first glance. Tall, slender, wrapped in layered fabric that shimmered faintly like starlight caught in silk. Her skin was pale, faintly luminous, as if moonlight lived beneath it. Dark eyes, too dark, reflected the station lights like polished stone. But it was her posture that unsettled me most. She wasn't aggressive. She wasn't cautious. She looked tired. Our eyes met. And then something I never expected happened. Her lower lip trembled. Her breath hitched. Those impossible eyes filled with liquid light, and she began to cry. Not quietly. Not politely. She cried like someone who had been holding herself together for far too long. I lowered the wrench, without realizing it. "Hey," I said, my voice coming out softer than intended. "It's okay. You're safe here." The universal translator in my ear buzzed as it scrambled to interpret my words. She stared at me like I'd just shattered something invisible. "You can see me," she said. Her voice was melodic, layered, as if more than one tone lived beneath each word. "Yeah," I replied slowly. "I'm looking right at you." Her knees buckled. I lunged forward on instinct, catching her before she hit the deck. She was lighter than she looked, fragile in a way that sent a jolt of protectiveness through me. She clutched my sleeve like it was the only solid thing left in the universe. "They said you wouldn't," she whispered. "They said humans wouldn't." I guided her to the bench along the wall, helping her sit. She pressed her hands to her face, shoulders shaking. "I don't understand," I said. "Why are you here?" She took a shaky breath, then looked at me again, really looked this time. Studied my face like it was a map she'd memorized in dreams. "My name is Esra," she said. "I am what remains of my people." That was the beginning. Esra told me her story in fragments at first. Painful ones. Her species, the Kelleran, were empathic by nature. Not telepaths exactly, but deeply attuned to emotional resonance. They could feel intentions, sorrow, fear, hope. It shaped everything about their civilization, from governance to art to warfare. Or what passed for warfare. They believed emotion was weakness, she said, staring at her hands. So they hunted us. The Kelleran had been eradicated not by brute force, but by isolation. Enemy factions learned how to mask emotional signatures, rendering themselves invisible to Kelleran's senses. Blind and overwhelmed, her people fell one by one. Esra had escaped by accident. She was a student then, young by her people's standards, studying comparative cognition. Humans had fascinated her species for decades. Loud emotions, contradictory impulses, fierce empathy coexisting with violence. Unpredictable. They thought you were dangerous, she said softly. But I thought you were honest. So she came looking for us. Not as an invader, not as an emissary, but as a refugee. I reached out to dozens of worlds, she said. Most could not perceive me clearly. Their minds slid away from mine. Yours didn't. She met my eyes again, tears threatening to spill once more. When I looked at you, she said, I felt seen for the first time since my home burned. I didn't know what to say to that. I offered her water. She smiled faintly, confused, then laughed, a broken, beautiful sound, when she realized I was trying to comfort her. We talked for hours. About Earth. About the stars. About grief that outlives planets. And somewhere between shared silence and awkward jokes, I realized something terrifying. I didn't feel afraid anymore. Earth Command noticed the anomaly within 12 hours. Of course they did. I was ordered to stand down, isolate the station, and await a diplomatic task force. Esra listened quietly as the message played, her expression unreadable. They will study me, she said. Contain me. Not if I can help it, I said before thinking. She tilted her head. Why would you? I searched for an answer that made sense. Because she cried when she saw me.
Because she trusted me.
Because the galaxy had already taken everything else from her. I think, I said slowly, that if we're going to meet the universe, we should start by not breaking the first person who comes asking for help. The task force arrived with armed escorts and smiles that didn't reach their eyes. They spoke in calm tones about protocols and security risks. Esra stood beside me, hands folded, looking smaller with each word. When they raised a containment field generator, she flinched. I stepped forward. No, I said. You're not taking her like that. Silence followed. Tense. Heavy. This is not your decision, the commander said. It is if I refuse to move, I replied. They stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Esra touched my arm. Her presence flooded me with something warm and aching, gratitude mixed with fear. You would stand against your own kind, she asked softly. For me? I'm standing with my kind, I said. The part of us that still remembers how to care. The standoff lasted minutes that felt like lifetimes. Finally, the commander exhaled. We'll negotiate. Negotiation became coexistence. Esra was granted asylum under conditions that made everyone uncomfortable and no one entirely satisfied. She became humanity's first true extraterrestrial citizen, though the word felt small for what she represented. She lived under observation at first, then under protection, then slowly under trust. And through it all, she kept coming back to me. We talked about everything. Music, loneliness, what it meant to rebuild a culture from memory alone. She taught me how her people perceived emotions as colors, textures, currents in space. I taught her about rain and sarcasm, and why humans cried at movies they'd already seen. One evening, as we watched Earth rise over the station's viewport, she grew quiet. When I first looked at you, she said, I cried because I thought I was imagining you. A projection of hope. She turned to me. Now I cry because you are real. Her tears fell silently this time. I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. The galaxy didn't change overnight. There were still threats. Still fear. Still voices that said opening our door had been a mistake. But something fundamental shifted. The universe learned that humans were capable of mercy. And Asra learned she wasn't alone. As for me, I stayed on the station, watching the stars with an alien woman who once cried when she saw me, because for the first time in a long, lonely universe, someone finally looked back and said, "I see you too." And this time, we both meant it. Years later, historians would argue about the exact moment humanity truly joined the galactic community. Some would say it was the first signed treaty. Others would say it was the first shared technology exchange. A few romantics would say it was the first time an alien child was born under Earth's sky. But I knew better. It happened the day Asra stopped crying when she looked at the stars. We were standing on a quiet observation deck overlooking the Pacific, the air warm and salted, waves murmuring far below. Earth's night sky stretched above us, crowded, imperfect, alive. She stood beside me, her posture relaxed in a way it hadn't been before, her presence no longer fragile. "I used to feel them," she said softly. "Every voice of my people, every thought. When they vanished, the silence was unbearable." I didn't interrupt. I'd learned that silence was sometimes the greatest gift humans could offer her. "For a long time," she continued, "I thought survival meant remembering them, holding on to the pain so they wouldn't disappear completely." She turned to me, eyes reflecting city lights instead of grief. "But you taught me something else." "What's that?" I asked. "That survival can also mean continuing." She placed her hand over her chest. I could feel the faint warmth beneath her skin, the steady rhythm of a heart that had once believed it was the last of its kind. "I no longer feel alone when I look outward," she said, "because now, when the universe looks back, it looks like you." Below us, a transport passed silently, its lights cutting through the darkness. Somewhere in the world, people argued about politics, dreamed about tomorrow, fell in love, mourned, hoped. Loud, chaotic humanity, still flawed, still dangerous, still beautiful. Asra leaned against me, her head resting lightly on my shoulder. "Do you know why I cried when I first saw you?" she asked. I smiled faintly. "Because I could see you?" She shook her head. "Because you didn't turn away." She closed her eyes, breathing in the night air. "My people believed empathy was our greatest vulnerability," she said. "But they were wrong. It was our strength. And now it is yours too." I looked up at the sky, at the stars that no longer felt distant or indifferent. Somewhere out there were civilizations still watching us, measuring us, deciding what we were worth. Let them watch. The first alien who came to us didn't come with weapons or demands. She came with tears, and we didn't answer her with fear. We answered her with open hands. That was how humanity truly stepped into the galaxy, not as conquerors, not as gods, but as something far rarer. Someone worth meeting. And when Asra finally looked at me again, no tears this time, only a quiet, radiant smile, I knew the universe would never be the same.